Solomon was considered the wisest man to ever live. Not named Jesus, of course. And he wrote a book that we find in the Old Testament called Ecclesiastes. And in this book, he wrote that there was a time for everything on earth. Now, that's some wisdom right there. You see, because what we know is that from time to time, we need a break. There comes a moment when you are completely drained and you just need to be recharged. You need some rest. Well, having said that, here's what we know. We also know that resting can't just be our lifestyle. That'll make us lazy. So in Mark chapter 6, we find that Jesus has sent out his disciples. He sends out the 12. They go and they teach and they preach and they minister, and they come back later in the same chapter and they begin to report to Jesus everything that they had done and seen and how God had moved. And when they had finished, we read this in verse 31. Jesus is speaking, and this is what he says to them. He says, "Come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest for a while." You see, the disciples, they needed rest. They needed rest because they had exhausted themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And in exhausting themselves, they needed time to recover. As a Christian, God has called all of us to the ministry. Now, some of us, we are called into vocational ministry. It is our job. This is what we do with our very lives. But every single person that calls Jesus Christ Lord and Savior is called to be a minister of the gospel. And in our lives ministering the gospel, some people will fizzle out. Well, that's because they're lazy and they don't work hard enough. But some people will burn out because they go all out. Almost like if you've ever been to a cross-country race, you'll see some of the kids at the very beginning go into a dead sprint. And inside of a mile, they're walking. The problem is they're not in a sprint. They're in a long distance run. And our lives as Christians is not a sprint. It is an endurance race. And there are going to be times and seasons when we are called to work, and we have to work and work hard. But there are going to be times when we also need to rest. Because if we're not careful, we can actually turn the ministry that we're a part of into an idol in our lives. And that's no good for us. And that's no good for the people that we're ministered to. So the Christian life requires balance. Yes, I'm all in for Jesus. Yes, I'm ready to give an account at all times. But I also understand that there comes a moment, there comes a season, there comes a time when we must rest, and rest well. Thank you for joining me today. Until tomorrow, be blessed and have a wonderful day.